want to talk about Capture Beyond Limits Nebo motion slider. This is a motorized slider that I backed on Kickstarter last spring. Now, I've wanted a slider for a long time, and when this Kickstarter project came along, there were a couple of things that appealed to me. One, that it gave you a good length, but still broke down into a fairly compact and very lightweight system. Also the fact that it is motorized, and we'll talk about why that is important to me in a moment, but remained portable and, on the time of the Kickstarter, quite affordable. Now, there are a lot of different slider options out there, but I have to say, even with the Kickstarter prices being gone now, non-motorized is $6.99, motorized is $8.99, and it seems to be a good value. I need to use this I've gotten it out of the box about 15 minutes ago, so I really am just sharing my initial impressions with you about this setup. But the reason I wanted one is, well, non-motorized sliders can give you just a really nice smooth way to add some dynamic motion to otherwise static video shots. A lot of times my opening shots for products that I'm talking about really can be kind of boring. There is the camera, there is the lens, but now we can do some movement around or across the frame of that camera or lens. Having a motorized slider adds in another level, mostly for time lapse, because now you've seen those time lapses before. I've posted them before, but all of my movements within time lapses have been fake, just like the Instagram video I uploaded the other day of snowfall here in southern Vermont. And the snow's coming down and it's building up, and that was neat, but it felt like it needed something more. And so in post-processing, in Final Cut, I moved or panned the frame across while the video is running. And it looks fine. Fooled some people. They thought that I had picked up this. Well, nope, it just arrived today. The reason why you want an actual slider is that there are times where you want to shoot at those very high resolutions and share at those very high resolutions. And if you want to pan within the frame, you often need to crop down to give yourself movement and extra on either side to move across. When you're using something like this, you can shoot at that 4K resolution with a GH4 or at the 4K resolution shooting time lapses from other cameras, and you have movement. And it is different type of movement too. I've been asked before, is post-processing panning the same as having a slider? No. Sometimes you can fool people, but the whole parallax movement of how things change to your eye as you move is different than simply moving a flat, non-dimensional image across the screen. So, all that said, I picked this up. I've just started to put it together. I've put the 2 rails or 3 of the rails onto the centerpiece, and I just left one off to show you. These are carbon fiber, incredibly light, and as I mentioned, really all of this stuff feels really well put together, certainly not cheap at all. And this just screws on here to the center point. Now the center point, I've already attached one of my tripod quick release plates that's going to go up here in just a second. So once you have the 4 cross beams, or rails would be a better way to describe them, I guess, on, you can put the little roller dolly like so. This has a standard tripod socket and also tripod head sized socket as well. So you could put a whole head on here, which will then give you those ball motions that you could set up to get the exact angle you want. Once it's on though, you just slide it in here and it sits there like so. Then you attach the end pieces. This is all machine grade aluminum. Again, feels really nicely well made. And this slides in at the end and tightens down. End pieces, both the non-motorized and the motorized, also have tripod sockets as well. So you can attach in multiple locations, bring 2 tripods out with the field to you, and get a very kind of slanted view. So this is going to go on to the other end. Just going to move it over so you can see what I'm doing. Now, the motor is powered by a 9-volt battery that lives inside here. 2 little screws give you access to that. A little disappointed that it's a 9-volt battery. You know, I don't have a lot of those around, so I'm going to have to pick up some, and also they're not rechargeable, or at least I've never seen any. I'm sure there's some somewhere, but I don't have a recharger for them. I would love AA's because we literally have 50, 60 rechargeable AA's around, and that would be nice to throw in there. The motor then plugs into the little power, which is provided from the battery I just said, and you've got two switches, an on and an off, and then a dial to control the speed. The bottom switch controls whether or not you want it to go forward or reverse. What actually moves the rail along when you're using the powered bit is this paracord. So you run the paracord in through here, put it in through these little quick release shoe tie things that you had as a kid maybe, and other people made fun of you if you had them, but you didn't care because it made it so easy to take your shoes on and off, or maybe that was when you were an adult. So it comes in the other side and you adjust the tension. Now you are supposed to wrap one of the ends around the pulley system just twice to give yourself that tension that is needed for power. So it's on there. We can screw something like the GoPro on right here just for a quick demonstration of how this works. And what I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks is shooting some both time lapses, manual videos with this, and well, we're just going to stick it there for like that for now. Both of those have flat heads so that you can adjust the size. And shooting some time lapses with this over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be sharing those. Watch at the end of this video for links out to those time lapses. Once it's all set up, you can then, as I showed at the very beginning, set it onto a tripod like so. And again, actually, I could pop this off for a second. Let's do that. And for manual video, you can simply just move this along. Now you're not going to do that for a time lapse because for a time lapse you're looking for that very smooth, very consistent movement. And this motor is going to, I hope, give you that. I'm going to flip it on. A little red light comes to let you know it's on. No idea about battery life. I haven't seen anything written down about that. And I'm going to put it in the forward motion. And I'm going to crank it up to its fastest speed. And you there may not be able to see that anything is happening, but if I carefully watch the wheels, there is certainly movement. Now, why so slow even on its fastest setting? Well, when you're going to use the motor is for your time lapses. And you think about good time lapses, they take a long time to shoot. And so to cover this distance, you want to spread that out over a long period of time. On its slowest setting, I can just barely detect movement. So I think what I'll like to do is throw up a watch with a little timer and try to figure out. That's another downside that I want to list is there are no markings at all on the side here of the dial to give you any kind of indication of what type of speed or length of time it's going to take to get from one to the other. So before I get out in the field, it's going to be important to kind of figure out how long is it going to take to get from point A to point B, and then use that to decide or determine what type of time lapse I'm going to shoot, what the interval is going to be of the time lapse. So this all is going to have to factor into shooting the time lapse itself. Obviously, it would be kind of boring to have this motion in the first 5 minutes of the time lapse, and then the next half hour it's just static. That would defeat the purpose. So you want the motion probably to continue over the course of the time lapse, or at least most of the course of the time lapse. So this is Capture Beyond Limits Nebo motion slider, and I just wanted to give you my early thoughts. Very positive. There's going to be some things that I'm going to have to figure out here, but overall I'm really excited to get this out into the field. Downside right now is it is really cold, so that means sitting around and waiting in the cold for time lapses to shoot. So I decided to go ahead and get out of the office with the Nebo motion slider to a much more scenic location. This is Stickney Brook in southeastern Vermont, one of my favorite locations. Year-round it offers something for photography and videography and time lapses. So you can actually see the Nebo motion slider running over there. I have it set on its faster time right now, which is about 25 minutes. And you know, one of the things that you want to be careful about making time lapses is a lot like film in the old days. You're not quite sure what you're going to get. You could see individual frames, of course, but you don't know how the whole thing is going to play out until you've brought it back in and put it all together on a computer. So you need to make sure that you're doing things as correct as possible out in the field. And one of those is to figure out what kind of clip length you're going to get running a time lapse for about 25 minutes. On Android devices, I really love this little app just simply called Time Lapse Calculator, and it gives you a bajillion different ways to calculate out what your file size is going to be, what your clip length should be, or maybe you already know what your clip length should be, so it's going to tell you how long you need to sit out there and record for at whatever interval you're running at. In my case, I want this time lapse to run while it's in motion, so I have about 25 minutes. So at 24 frames a second, I'm going to plug in that it's going to run for 25 minutes, and I'm taking a picture every 2 seconds. I think there's going to be some trial and error over the use of this device and its speeds and figuring out which intervals work best. On the GoPro, you're limited to half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds, and then jumps to 5 seconds. On something like the GH4, which I plan to run on it a little bit later, I can do 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up. So I plug all that information in, and it's going to tell me that I'm going to get a 30-second clip back if I'm shooting every 2 seconds over a 25-minute period. That's really helpful. 30 seconds is fine. I might not run it back at 24 frames per second. I might double it to 48. That's still a 15-second clip, and for a quick little scenic bit, that is plenty. I'll probably even trim it down some more. And what I'll do is I'll shoot a couple of these in different locations and different looks, or different locations, not really different looks, and keeping that interval and that timing consistent so that the speed feels the same through all of the different clips, and put them all together and hopefully share them at the end of this video. If you've got any questions or comments about this, just leave them right down below. If you appreciated this video, give it a quick thumbs up, and if you're not already a subscriber, take a moment to subscribe. Produce lots of videos on a variety of topics, both photo and video related, and I'd love for you to watch future ones. If you're serious about supporting me, you might want to take a moment and pop over to my Patreon support, where Patreon subscribers get increased access to me and some additional content I'm calling perks for being a supporter. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.